Okay. Good morning, everyone. So we're gonna have, I'm gonna try to watch the waiting room just in case people are trying to hop on while we get started here. So this is your basic, very basic SweetAssist guiding guidelines and how to kind of maneuver around. This will be our second training. So basically, we're going to have a question and answer session about SweetAssist and how to put in a transaction. How to put in a transaction is a little different on each side. I'm hoping Wendy's able to get on the call as well, because on the Swell Realty side, do I have a lot of Swell Realty agents on the call? It's a bit different. You have to change phases when you're doing transaction on the Swell Realty side. That is not the case on the Swell real estate side. Okay. All right, great. Okay, so let me start by asking, does everyone know how to access their SweetAssist? They know how to start creating a transaction in SweetAssist.
Yes.
Okay, so on if you have a question, just jump in, okay? Because there's a lot of people on and I may not see your hand, so just go ahead and jump in if you have a question. I want to start by, I'm going to try to share my screen here and see if I can't. We're going to go with this very general. Okay. So once you get to starting a transaction, if you have a POA or HOA, that's a separate block. SweetAssist will ask you the questions that you need when you first start a transaction. So everybody's good at how to get to this portion of the transaction. Your transaction is uploaded. You put your client name, and you're on what we call the details tab. When you're on the details tab, just know that everything that has this little red asterisk has to be completed in order to submit for closing. So if it's no red asterisk, like when the earnest money deposit is due, that's not something that's required to go there. It's a reminder for yourself, but it's not a requirement. But it will not let you close the file, submit the file for closing if everything is not added with the asterisk. So everyone understands that. So your MLS number has to be there. The other side has to be there, that listing agent, or if you're the listing agent or the buyer agent, that information has to be there in order to submit for closing. Also, the next tab is your contact tab, your contacts tab. That is where you're going to put your lender and your closing agent. If you do not have the lender information, or you don't have then that's your closing agent who you're using as a closing agent, not necessarily the other side's closing agent. And if you don't know the lender, you should know the lender, but if you don't know the lender, you can always use the N/A. There will be options that pop up, but those also have the red asterisk, so they need to be there in order to submit for closing. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay, so we're going to skip right over to your document tab. When you go to input, mine's a little different. I am on the Swell Real Estate side. So when you're on both sides, are going to give you, depending on what side of the listing that you're on, when you add a listing, you have to have all of your listing documents, and each document has a block. If you have it individually broken down, you can always click on it, upload your document, and it will jump right into the block. And you just go down each one. Anything that says optional is not necessarily required unless it is part of your transaction. So if it is a bank owned, then it's not an optional document. You need to have it. You need to have that there. Lead-based paint says that is optional on this transaction. But if your property was built 1978 or before, you know that that's a required document. So you need to have that there. So even though it says optional, it may not, it is optional on some transactions, but not on all. Does anyone have any questions so far? We'll talk about as we go down. We talked a little bit about this during our first training about the compensation agreement. Everyone knows that we've had a lot of trouble with this compensation agreement. If you have that signed by one side, fine, upload it. If you don't, that's perfectly fine. We're taking it either way. What I have noticed is ever since we came up with that option, most people have the compensation agreement. So please continue to get that. It replaced the COM1. So, and it's also in the contract. The compensation is also in the contract as well. But if you'll continue to get that, that would be great. Verification of EMD. So everybody needs to kind of understand the verification of EMD means that we don't need a picture of the check. They want verification that the EMD was received by the closing agent. So if you have a check and you take it into the closing agent, you need some type of receipt back to upload in this document, in this document slot. Please know that I can't send a transaction to be processed without that, without verification. There's some things like I can work around, but that is one Barry will not let me work around. You have to have the verification of EMD. And if you could be sure that your EMD is being received within the time frame allotted. It's also noted on your contract, but this is kind of real estate 101. If for some reason your EMD is going to be late or you're not going to make it within the time, please create an amendment. Have it signed by both sides to reschedule that EMD. EMD agreed by both parties to be received by XYZ date. That covers that. That will keep you from being reported to DPOR. So even though Barry does not hold EMDs, he is a stickler. Julie is also a stickler. Please have your EMDs on time. That's something that we run into, and I don't want to have any issues with that. And as you scroll down, as you start completing your file, you have to have the completed signed. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna just ask Wendy to take out ALTA or CD. It needs to say executed ALTA or executed HUD. It's not just the preliminary CD that needs to go there. You need to receive that from your closing agent. And of course, the SWO closing sheet. I do notice that a lot of folks are still using the old closing sheet. There is a new updated closing sheet for both SWO Real Estate and SWO Realty. If you don't have that, let me know. I'll be happy to email it to you. You can find that in the Google Drive, and you can also, I believe, find that in SuiteAssist. But we're trying to get away from using the old closing sheet because it does not have all the details that we need to process closings. Okay, so does anyone have any questions so far? Does everyone know how to upload bulk documents? Is anyone struggling with the uploading of bulk documents and how to assign your bulk documents to the individual slots? So when you upload just from my end, when I get your transaction and it's been submitted for closing, in order for me to process, when Barry sends me over something to say, hey, the wire has come in for this file, I go into your file. If it's submitted for closing, then I know it's ready. If it's not submitted for closing, I will take a look at it and say, hey, you're missing all these documents or whatever it is you're missing from your file. And then I'm going to ask you to upload those documents, submit it for closing, and then let me know when that's completed. So I don't have to keep going back I don't have to keep going back to look to see if you've uploaded that. So I put that responsibility back on the agent to just let me know, send me a text message, shoot me an email, just say, hey, all documents are uploaded. Can you, and it's submitted for closing. If you're having trouble with submitting for closing, like it won't let you for some reason, there's a little red box that pops up over here. Let's see. When I hit submit for closing, I don't know if you guys can see this. I hope you can. That block that pops up here that says this is missing from your transaction. So if you read that, it'll tell you exactly what you're missing to allow you to submit it for closing. If you're still having problems submit it for closing, give myself or Wendy a call so we can help you. But submit it for closing tells me that your file is ready to move on to the next stage. Does anyone have any questions so far? I'm going to stop sharing my screen for the moment. Okay, so if no one really has any questions, so I'm assuming that most of you have the hang of SuiteAssist, how to upload your documents, how to bulk upload your documents from the processing side. So when your closing agent sends over the wire, I will usually within a day or two, I get the notification from the office to say, hey, wire for XYZ for Heather St. Clair came in for the amount of $12,000. I pull that file, go through each one of your documents to make sure your documents are DPOR compliant. So you're getting you're truly getting from the office a triple look at, you're looking at it, I'm going to look at it, and Barry he can take a peek at it as well. But I'm really kind of scrutinized a little bit to make sure that all your T's are crossed and I's are dotted. Because if your file gets pulled for audit, which is random, we want to make sure that everything is in order.
Hey,
so
Shonda.
that can be at any time. Yes, Steve, go right ahead.
Yeah, one thing I know is sometimes with a bulk upload, sometimes when you're assigning those docs, it kind of behaves a little funny. Sometimes when you're, and maybe I don't know, maybe you can review that, but I've had times where I'm like, it's kind of quirky, the system a little bit. And I don't know, maybe I'm the only one, but maybe it's probably user error.
I'm glad that you
Yeah.
asked. Okay, so we can look at, let me see if I can do a bulk upload for, I'm looking at the chat to make sure I didn't miss anything. Sean asked question. Sean, on this floor really side, I'm closing on my listing this week. I just created a new transaction. I have all docs with this. The majority of the required documents were not listed as you have shown there. That's because you need to change, Sean, you need to change your phase. On the Swell real estate side, there's one additional step. You have to change your phase. So Sean's saying that when he's on the listing side and all of those documents that were showing when I shared my screen, let's see if I can do that again, weren't there. On the Swell Realty side, you have to change your phase. Your phase is on the detail screen. So if you go to your and there's also a video. There's also a video and SuiteAssist for you to watch as well, Sean, and anyone else who's struggling here. If you can see where it says transaction phase, on the Swell Realty side, you have a drop-down menu and it will say change to pending. You're going to change it to pending and it will ask you questions. The questions, I believe, are will the buyer request repairs? And if you say yes, it will drop the PICRA block in there for you. And I think it asks you 2 or 3 questions. I'm not a Swell Realty agent, so it's kind of hard for me to show it to you on my screen. I'm a Swell real estate agent. So it will ask you a couple questions. Once you answer those questions, all of those blocks will then appear under your Documents tab. Does that make sense? Sean, if you could take yourself off of mute and communicate with me, that'd be great.
Yeah, that makes sense. I went through this already, and I was like, I was talking to Madison, and I'm like, I don't see the Alta, I don't see this. I know these documents are required. They were in my last one. But I just didn't realize, I
Yeah.
guess there was this pending Dropbox you had to put down to receive all the documents.
Yes, that is something that Wendy created for the Swell real estate side of things. I don't necessarily have a reason as to why she decided to do it that way on that side. But yes, even on the buyer side, you have to change. I'm sorry, I'm letting people in the room at the same time, so forgive me. You have to change that phase on the detail screen. Like mine now, you can look at your screen, it says active, there'll be a pending, and then there's submit for closing. So once you change it to pending, it will ask you those questions, and then it will drop you'll see the ALTA and all the other documents that you need in order to
Okay.
complete your file.
Because I just thought I
And
answered, when you created it, asked you a handful of questions as well. I guess these handful of
it
questions
does.
weren't included in that. Okay.
Yes, no, it is not. There's one additional phase there, and that's very important because I notice a lot of Swell Realty agents are missing that step, and then they're not uploading their ALTA or their closing sheet, and then I can't process without it because I need both of those to send over to the office so that Gemma can process. But there's no block there, so you're like, oh, there's no block there from so you don't do it because you're busy doing all kinds of other things. So you don't
I went ahead
upload.
and added them manually, but I'm going to remove the ones I added manually and put them in the blocks that they've now populated
Okay,
into this particular transaction. But
awesome,
yeah, I
awesome.
wasn't going
Okay,
to submit it without it because I knew they had to go in there. So I was like, well, I'm getting them in
yeah,
there somehow. But I
yes.
figured
A
they
lot
should
of
be in there.
people
So
miss that.
Madison was like, figure out how to do it right. So we're not doing this in the future. So cool beans.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And if you ever have any questions like that, just let me know. Also, I noticed that we have some folks the CDA form. When you click here on the CDA form, this page is for the office to complete, for myself in the office to complete. So you guys don't have to do anything with this page. Sometimes that will cause, when you start messing with this, it'll cause it not to submit for closing, or I can't process it because it's weird. It just acts weird. So you don't have to worry about the CDA form. All of the information I need to to finalize your transaction to actually close it out will be on your ALTA and your closing sheet, as far as the percentage and all that good stuff, commission, your final close date I get from your ALTA. Does anyone else have any other questions? I just want to take a quick moment to talk about contacts, because the office uses this information. So how often are people using Liberty Title or our lender? So when you go to your contacts and you say add a lender, let's see, is it Guild? Okay, so you see there's choices there. If your choice isn't there, create you can create your choice there. But if there isn't, if you don't have a lender, maybe it's a cash deal, you can do NA, and you click on that, select partner, and that covers the requirement you need to close out the deal. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. All right, so we'll move right back over to your details tab. Again, just make sure that everything that has an asterisk here is completed. Appraisal date and things like that, you don't have to complete because there's no asterisk, but make sure you have your listing agent telephone number, or the other side of the transaction. If it's going to be the buyer side, whatever your side, just make sure you complete that information and make sure you have the MLS number there. It should not allow you to submit for closing for that. And sometimes the system will allow you to submit for closing missing some of that information. But when I look at it, if it's not there, I'll say, hey, can you upload your contacts for me before I can process. Okay. So if anyone, let's just before we go, because it's a very basic training for SuiteAssist, we will do this again next month. And my goal is to actually upload a full transaction for you, especially in a Swell real estate Swell Realty side of things. So you can actually see that phase change and how it, I will actually log in as an agent. I'll ask an agent to use their ID, and so you can actually see that phase change and see those blocks drop in that you need. And of course, for bulk documents, the one thing I'd like to mention about bulk documents, when you do that, let me see if I can move this over here. When it says upload bulk, and you find it on your computer, whatever it is, let's see, we'll use closing sheet. Let's say that your ratified contract and your PICRA and your DPOR, once it uploads the file, you will have the blocks that you need to assign it to. You'll click on this assign pages here. And then let's say you're going to, let's say this is the lead-based paint, the PICRA, a list of things. You're going to click on the block that you're going to upload it to. Click that 1 page or 2 pages or 16 pages if it's your ratified contract, and it will go there. Then you will click on your next document, and it grades it out because now you've already uploaded it until wherever you need it to go. So you want to go to your next block and then click on the number of pages that are required for that document. Does that make sense to everyone? If you accidentally click on the wrong thing, you can scroll down. The pages will be here. Because this is only 1 page, the pages will be here. And what you can do is unclick that page. It will ask you, are you sure you want to unassign that? And you say yes, and then you can assign it to the right document, the right document bucket, if that makes sense. So we'll during our next training, we'll practice that, but it's very, 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 very simple. Walkthrough. Let's talk about the walkthrough is optional. It says optional. If you have your walkthrough, even if it's signed by your side of the party, your side of the transaction, please upload it. Just upload it there. It's not a required document. Barry's not a stickler on it. But if there should be a reason that a file should get audited, we may have to ask for it, and it's better than you having to go back and look 3 months or 6 months later to find that particular walkthrough document. Does anyone have any questions? I'd like to open up the floor for questions. I'll be happy to answer any detailed questions that you guys may have. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to take a look at the chat, make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, you're welcome.
I have one question.
Yes, absolutely.
Now that I created those a few documents manually that weren't currently in there, now that I've done the pending and they've been added in, I don't see an option to remove the documents that I've manually added. Is there a way to remove that block section over there?
I do not think there. I don't think there's a way to actually delete the documents. What, Sean, for your situation, what you can do is leave them where you manually added them, because you're going to have trouble submitting to close, right? Because you've already uploaded them somewhere else, but those required documents are now there. So when you go to hit submit for closing, it's going to give you that red box, and it's going to say, you're missing all these documents. So I'm going to share my screen again. What I would suggest,
I think I'll just create a new one real quick. It don't take very long.
Okay, that's totally up to you. If you do not want to do that, the request for exemption button here, what you can do, I don't know how much of my screen you can see, if you can see me having to move the Zoom link over, just type your note. You can say uploaded in additional docs bucket. So that way I know, and you hit submit, So when I see it, I can see that you've requested an exemption for that bucket. Doesn't mean that it's not there. You just uploaded it somewhere else. So then I can go get it. Usually if the document is there, I can find it because I'm going to click on all the buckets. Sometimes what happens is there's nothing in that bucket. So I assume there's nothing there. And then I may email you and say, hey, can you upload your DPOR? And you're like, oh, it's with the PICRA because you just uploaded everything, but you didn't assign it. Okay, then I'll be happy to scroll through and find it there. If it's there, I can find it. I don't want to make this hard for anyone. If the documents are there, I'll find them. Again, my goal is to make it easy when you have to go back and reference a file that's 6 months old or a year old. You want to be able to find, the broker may need, Julie may need to find a document, or Barry may need to find a file or a document. So we need to make it convenient to go back and not have to bug you to say, hey, can you look back in your file to find something that may already be there. I try to make notes on files if something is missing, or you just didn't get it. You know, maybe you didn't get your buyer broker. That is another huge document that we need to have, is that your buyer broker. So if you, when you're the buyer side, make sure you upload your buyer broker, and everyone knows that the Swell additional disclosure form is different than the last page of the buyer broker form. They're two different documents. I'm actually seeing a lot of people upload the correct document lately, but I want to be sure that everybody knows that they are two different documents, and they're hard to get once you've closed. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will help you with those documents if necessary. Track control business. Yes. Alexandra? Yes, you have a question about control business? Are you going to type it in?
Sorry,
Hi.
I found it on my screen. Yeah, so it only gives you the option to have the signature for the purchaser. Is there a different one for sellers? The control business form?
No, there isn't. I understand. So you use it, you use it with your buyers and your sellers. There is not a separate signature for the buyer and the seller. So that's something I can bring up to Wendy, and maybe we can make a correction, because that is an internal document. So we can easily adjust that document.
But Shonda?
Yes.
Shonda, I'm sorry, can I jump in here? My understanding, and I just had this conversation with Barry recently, is that document that Alexandra was just talking about is just for the buyer's side.
Are you talking about part of your buyer broker agreement, that last page of your buyer broker agreement? I'm thinking Swell control the control business. Maybe we're talking about two different documents, Alexandra.
Well,
and I.
yeah, we are, but when you're representing the buyer, you have to have that the Swell additional disclosure form signed by your buyer, as well as the controlled business arrangement. If you're representing the seller, all you need is the additional disclosure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And that's all
Yeah.
I look for on the seller side. I just want that internal document, the Swell additional disclosure. That last page of the buyer broker agreement, Alexandra, I'm sorry, is part of your buyer broker agreement, and you don't need that for the seller side.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to everyone? Are there any more questions that we can answer, or I can answer?
Actually, I have a suggestion.
Yes.
For the forms that the Swell forms that are required, like for instance, you mentioned about the closing sheet, that there's a new one.
Yes.
when you or Wendy upload those into the Google Drive, why don't they put a like version, V1, 2, 3, 4, whatever the version number, and maybe the date, and then make a list of the forms that everybody could go and look. Okay, well, the latest one for the closing sheet, it's July of 2024, July 23rd of 2024. I know I got the correct one. So that could save you and everybody else some additional time having to go in and replace it.
There are
Okay,
multiple versions out there.
Say that again?
Yeah. Yeah, I heard him. He said there are multiple versions. So when I speak with Wendy, I think Wendy is on vacation right now. I know she has a folder in the Google Drive, and I believe it's on both sides, Swell Realty and Swell Real Estate, that say updated forms or new forms for 2024. So the only thing that should be in that are the latest version of the form. But I will double check with her the next time we meet together. I will talk with her and we make sure that that's the case, so we make it easier for you guys. Because on the new forms, it specifies whether or not you're being paid as an LLC or a corporation, the name of your corporation, because I have to verify that information with DPOR. And if you contribute money for closing costs, if you're splitting it with another agent, it's very, very detailed. So that the new closing form is much more detailed than the old one that I'm seeing still being used. But yes, I will definitely speak with Wendy and make sure that we make it easy for you guys to access and know what version that you're using. Because I would like us, if we're not using it anymore, just delete it or make so it's not accessible.
Yes.
I was just going to say that too. We should delete the old one so it's not confusing. But the other thing is, if any of you, if you're in a hurry and you need it, like which form is the most recent, you can always reach out to me and I'll try to direct you to the right one too.
Yeah, and I'm also available for that too on this on either side of the group. If you need help finding the right document, I'll be happy to email it to you. If I'm not at my desk, I'll let you know, hey, I'm not at my desk. I'll get it over. I'll get it over to you. You may have to remind me though, because I'm all like an Energizer bunny. I'm all over the place. So I'm still a realtor, and I do sell homes myself, but I also have a full-blown transaction coordinating business with an assistant. So sometimes I can be pulled in a couple of different directions. So yes, if you need something, do not hesitate. Everyone has my cell phone number. I'm going to give it while we're on this call. So if you need to reach out to me, you can text me or call me at 757-912-7963. I do have both the my personal phone. I have the office phone as well. But if I am truly honest with you, the office phone is an iPhone and I hate it. I don't know how to use it. I'm an Android girl. So sometimes those messages pop up and I'm like, what? So yeah, please call me on my personal cell. I do have the office phone here too, my personal cell. You can reach me very quickly. I'm still getting used to carrying two phones. So believe me, the office phone sometimes can get left behind. I always have my personal cell on me. Does anyone else have any additional questions that I can help with?
Yes.
Yes.
Could you talk about if you have a partner on the transaction? For one, if you're both with either Swell Realty or Swell Real Estate, and then also if one is from the real estate company, one is from the realty company, how does that look in SuiteAssist? Like just one person enters all the information and then you add the second person on the closing sheet? I guess you can't have both people adding documents to the same transaction.
Well, if you are we talking dual agency type of situation? Like you have two agents, one's the seller side, one's the listing side, or are you talking about a partner like they're on your team? Like you guys are
Well,
splitting?
not necessarily even a team, but just like if I wanted to list something with you, say, and
Right.
we're both on the listing side, how would that look?
just one agent needs to upload. However, if you are sharing, well, it's kind of difficult to share if you're Swole Realty and Swole Real Estate. If you're dual agency type of situation, that is not actually dual agency. They are two different companies. So both sides will enter. Like if you're Swole Real Estate, you would upload documents. If you're Swole Realty, you will upload documents. But if you and I are listing together and we're both Swole Realty, I only need one agent, and just add that agent to the closing sheet so I know how to make sure that goes over to Gemma for processing. Like you're splitting 60-40 or 80-20 or whatever. That's all I need, just one agent to upload those docs. Does
All
that
right,
make
thank
sense?
you.
To answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you, Jim. Does anyone else have any questions I can answer?
I have a quick comment, not a question, but
Mhm.
Shonda, I just want to thank you so much for this. This is really helpful. So I appreciate you. And I want to thank all the agents that showed up today. Because I know we all can, even if you think you know it, there's always some little bit of something new that we can learn. So thank you.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. It not only helps me, it helps you guys, because anything can happen, and I know it's difficult. Sometimes you're trying to chase the next deal, and who has time to sit down and learn a whole new system? So just let me know if you need help. But I have to say, most of you are doing very well. Again, the Swole Realty side, don't forget you have to change the phase in order to get all those required documents. If you do not see them, call me, call Wendy. Let's walk you through how to get that. Because once it's at closing and those documents are missing, now I'm holding on to your money because I have to, I have to get all that stuff in there before I can process. And I don't want to hold anyone's money. I am not perfect. I am human. If you had a closing and you do not receive payment, please call me or text me and say, hey, I had this closing 2-3 days ago. Where's my money? So that's your money. You worked hard for it. Sometimes things get slipped through the cracks. It happened with poor Steve Crawford. A whole week went by, and I didn't realize that I started his process and he needed some documents and it got pushed to the side. And please don't let that happen. I will jump on it. I'm a realtor as well. I know how hard we work for our money and we want it timely. So please, please, please don't hesitate to ask if you're expecting something and it's not coming. So I appreciate you guys for jumping on. We've got about 15 agents on here. That's a great thing. And we'll do this again. I plan to do this once a month. Next month, I will try to walk through how to put a transaction in step by step if you want to jump on for that. All right. So I appreciate your time. And if no one else has any questions, I will say my goodbyes. Julie, thank you for jumping on.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure anytime. And you guys are very welcome. All righty. I will talk to you soon. Again, you can call me anytime.
All right. Bye, guys.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.